Hi, I'm Jamie, and this is JJ. Welcome to Unscripted with JJ and Jamie. On the first 3 episodes, JJ, we tried to catch everybody up on how we got to where we are today. So it was kind of like a crash course in the last 30 years. So what people really want to know is, how did we end up in the travel industry? And in the previous episodes, we talked a little bit about how it was hard for me to find a job. I finally convinced you into buying a commercial building, and we started an eBay store, had a little bit of a clothing store in there as well, but I also dabbled in travel. And then it was when somebody needed to rent the building that I came to you and I said, I only want to sell Walt Disney World vacations. I mean, I wasn't even really that interested in selling Adventures by Disney or Alani, or like, I really was just Walt Disney World, Disneyland. If somebody really wanted to go there, I could learn how, learn about it. But Walt Disney World was kind of my passion. And the original name of our travel agency, do you remember the original name of our travel agency?
From Work to Play.
Yeah, From Work to Play. Look at you, remembering the history. So we came up with the name From Work to Play because I was going to do, one of the things you said is you really need to do everything, like how successful could a company in Indiana be that only sold Disney vacations? Let me be the first to tell you, pretty successful.
I have no complaints.
I know. So it wasn't until we rented part of the building and I knew that I had rent covered for a year that I said, can I turn away business that's not Disney? And I remember everybody saying I've lost my mind. And I said, but I only
But the thing about it was, I don't think you lost your mind. I think that you were passionate about Disney.
Yeah.
It was something that you experienced.
And I was good at it.
Yeah, it's something you experienced early on in your childhood. Like you said, you wanted to sell Disney World, Walt Disney World, not even Disneyland.
Right.
Why? Because you had been to Walt Disney World. You knew Walt Disney World. You had a connection, fond memories at Walt Disney World. So this is something that you wanted to do and create these magical memories for other families, because you knew Walt Disney World. So it totally makes sense to me why you would want to do that and only do Walt Disney World.
That's right. So people probably want to know, how on earth did you go from Work to Play to magical vacation planner? Do you remember how that went down?
I remember a little bit. And of course, I know what MVP stands for.
That's right. So when we finally did get the contract with Disney, it took a little while to get the contract with Disney to kind of like, hey, we're over here, pay attention, I'm over here. And I remember actually Steve called me because someone had turned me in. It was the year of a million dreams. And I remember this because Jada was selected to be in the parade.
Yes.
And somebody that we know that works for the local newspaper did an article on her. And they interviewed me, and I said basically I was an exclusive Disney travel agent or something that was against the Disney rules.
Probably that word exclusive.
Exclusive or whatever. And Steve Smith does not remember this, but he called me, and I was so excited that somebody from Disney was calling me, even if I was in trouble. I felt very apologetic, but I said, hey, I'm glad you called. Because how do I get in? How do I get a contract with Disney? I really want to get a contract. He said, well, you need to sell X amount. I was like, we do. Then he said, really? And, I told him we were in Lawrence County, and he said, well, I need to set up an appointment. And so that's how I met Steve Smith from Disney, as I was actually doing something wrong. Steve will probably kill me for telling that story. But that's okay, because fast forward all these years, and Steve is a very instrumental person. He's a great friend. We've been on this journey with him the whole entire time, and he's been a very good friend to us.
You just said something very, very important. And I think that anybody that's in any industry should always strive to do things the right way.
Oh, 100%.
And although Steve Smith came with not exciting news, it was something that he corrected his own, because we didn't want to make mistakes or do things the wrong way. And I think doing things the right way, even when it's not favorable, I think that's very important to the success of a company, is to always, there's a lot of rules and regulations when it comes to companies, the way they go about doing business and the partners. And when you get into copyright and a lot of other stuff, it's important to do things the right way and do things the way that your partners want them to be done.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we want to be good partners, to our agents, to our vendors, to their clients. I mean, we want to be good. We want to be good partners with everybody that we do business with. So I think that is a very good and very valid point. Steve does not remember that story like that. But when I shared with him, when he finally did make his first call, and we had a few, not call, but his first call to the office, and he come to the office and he's like, how did I not know you guys were here? And I was like, well, we've just been minding our own business, trying to get your attention. Floating under the radar. And it was probably a few visits later that he said, you're only doing Disney? And I said, yeah, it's all I want to do. And he goes, well, from work to play really doesn't sound like Disney. And so we sat in the office and we talked about it. He said, well, JJ played basketball. And I said, and not only did he play basketball, he was the MVP multiple seasons of his career. And he's like, what if you come up with a name that has the acronym MVP? And actually, it was there that we came up with Magical Vacation Planner.
Yes.
And that is a hard name because there's a lot of copy people that's like very similar names.
Yes, very, very similar. But I like that acronym because the acronym MVP, what does MVP mean?
Most valuable person, most valuable player, most valuable
it's usually
people.
It's usually an acronym that's used with somebody that's done something exceptional.
Yeah.
That's done something exceptional or the best.
Yeah.
So I really like the play on that, MVP, Magical Vacation Planner.
100%.
Yes.
So that, my friends, is how we came up with Magical Vacation Planner. It was basically on a napkin.
On a napkin.
Which a lot of companies have beginnings like that. So it was at that moment that I really just started thinking outside of the box. And then I had some clients that were like, hey, can you teach me how to do this? And I was like, oh yeah, it's like really easy. So we had a local lawyer that helped us draw up some contracts. And he's been on this journey with us from almost the very beginning.
Yeah.
And he helped us, because I knew a lot about contracts, but I didn't know much about independent contractors. So I really had to lean heavily on our friend that's a lawyer. And he helped us write up the contracts. And Lewis, I'll say his name, Lewis.
Yes, Lewis. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what do you think some of the earlier challenges that you had with Magical Vacation Planning in the early days, help getting established?
Oh, man. I think I was so naive. I would say in the first few years of doing this, like, we didn't really have a lot of challenges. We were just skating through life, having fun.
Having a good time.
It was like a little club of us that had something in common. I went to church with a lot of the ladies that became MVPs. And so, and it was funny because like if the men after church talked about sports or basketball or anything other than church stuff, that was acceptable. But then people kind of started to have a little bit of a problem that our little group had some that we actually liked that didn't have to do with motherhood or cleaning or doing wifely duties. Like it was almost like there was a little bit of a shift where there was some feathers ruffled there maybe for a little bit, but I'm okay with that because that's what I do. I like to ruffle feathers. But it was funny because it really just started out. Like I said to Courtney, I remember saying, if we do this right, we may be able to make enough to pay for a $3,000 or $4,000 vacation. Yeah. I didn't have high expectations. I mean, it was like, but it was actually Courtney that multiple years or a lot of years after that, she came to me and said she wanted to quit nursing. and do this full time. And I was like, whoa, I was in my comfort zone. I was in my comfort zone when we were just doing it for fun. Like anything extra that I made, like I think then I was probably up to 20 hours a week with Michelle. Like she would help me file, and I was still selling vacations back then too. And, but when she decided to quit nursing, that was very uncomfortable for me. But her husband was a teacher. He had just got his principal's job. He got a promotion and became the principal at a local school. And she said, you know, she was a mother of 3 at the time. And she said, I want to be home with my kids.
Yes.
And I just remember thinking, whoa. And she's like, Jamie, I'm making enough money that I can quit nursing. And I had never equated that because it was always, I was in my comfort zone of this is fun money.
You know, and
I did not like that it depended, like bills depended on it. I was in my
one
comfort
of the
zone.
coolest things I think I've ever heard any advisor say was actually from her sister, Michelle.
Yeah.
And she said one day to you, and I was listening, I overheard her say this opportunity has allowed her to work from home where she can be with her babies.
I remember that. Judah was about to enter kindergarten. And that's the thing. Like a lot of these MVP kids are like growing up, like they're growing up in front of my eyes. And she said that to me. And she said, I'm able in the summer to go spend time at the pool with my kids. And she said, I can book vacations, answer emails at the pool. And on Fridays, we didn't work at the office, and they were independent contractors. But I said, hey, on Friday, bring the kids out to the house. And we got an extra Wi-Fi thing that we put by the, so they could swim at our pool on the day that I didn't work at the office. And Michelle didn't work, and we would just go hang out at the pool, and I would fix like a little lunch, or they would bring like sandwich, and the kids would swim. And, you know, so when I say that MVP is much deeper than a company, like, these are my people, you know, and not only that, that's just the local people. You have Myra that lives in Kentucky. You have Jenny that's in Maryland. You know, like a lot of these people have been with our company for a lot of years, and they're all around, you know. There's just something to be said about that.
Yes.
You know, it's like these people blindly trusted. But now I was honest with them. I said, look, I don't know. You know, they will all say that I have never promised that the moon and the stars. I'm like, I think this might work. I'm not sure, but I think if we do this, and I think if we do that, and I would say at times they were like, man, she's crazy. Like, she's crazy. Does she really? But I just think that so many times we second guess ourselves, but that's part of the key is having people that are saying, you know what, it's okay if we fail.
Well, and that's
We're
the
in
thing,
it to
you know,
win it.
that's the thing is you're getting people to believe in an idea.
Right.
You get them to believe in a dream.
That's not proven.
That's not proven, and where they need to show faith and trust.
And pixie dust.
They trust and pixie dust. Everything's going to be okay. You know, and I remember back then, one of the major challenges that we had was our logo was a wand with stars.
It was so magical.
Okay? It was magical. But one of the challenges during those days was when someone wanted a different vacation, or they wanted to go somewhere else. If they wanted to go on a cruise, or if they wanted to go on an all-inclusive, you know, people used to come. They used to say in the community, well, don't go to Jamie. Because if you're wanting to go on a cruise,
you're going to be on a Disney cruise.
You're going to be on a Disney cruise. She's going to sell you a Disney cruise.
Even if you don't even have any kids.
That's right. And that's
like, it's good for adults.
So that was one of the challenges that I say that we had also early on is you did such a good job that you were known as the Disney lady.
Well, you can say I didn't really waver.
Right.
It's taken a lot of years.
You were known as the Disney lady. So for anybody else that wanted to go anywhere else, you know, it took a long time to overcome that.
But I had to hear our agent saying, it's okay. We need to sell these other products.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, like, if you think of like, I'm an advocate, I would say I'm an advocate for our agents. And I would say that if all they wanted to sell was Disney, like I know business wise, it makes sense to be diversified. And I'm thankful that we're diversified, and you pushed me for years to be diversified. But it was hard because my love was Disney.
Yes. And that doesn't have to change.
It doesn't. I mean, you know what? People are still going to go to Disney, and people are still going to go on Disney cruise. But if they come in saying they want to go on Virgin Voyage where there's no kids, like, I'm not going to convince them why they need to be on a Disney cruise. That's what the old Jamie that sold travel would have definitely had them walking out and being happy that they booked a Disney cruise. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I never want to disappoint people. Like I never want to, I like to stay true to who I am. But I can say that Chris Donatella from Royal Caribbean, Scott Vacrumba from Carnival, Trish Hartledge from Sandals, they understood my love for Disney, and they respected it. And Lou from Universal, they respected that, and they never put pressure on me, but they always knew that my love was Disney. But they also now see that, like, you know what? I love them equally. You know, I mean, I love them just as much too, because they stood by us and they gave me time to say, you know what? JJ is right. We do need to offer our agents more than just one product. Doesn't mean we love Disney any less, but it means that people aren't always going to go on the same vacation year unless they're me. Unless they're me, I'm going on the same vacation.
And what we were trying to accomplish at that time was not to say don't go to Disney.
Oh no, not at all.
Or to change your love to Disney. What we were trying to do was add more value, you know, to the toolbox of our advisors, so that they never have to worry about losing a customer.
Right.
They could provide more value, you know, to whoever it is that they were working with. So if someone was wanting to go on Royal, then they could service them. Or if someone was wanting to go to Sandals, you know, they could service them and not have to worry about them having to go to a different place to book that, which if they go to a different place to book that, and that other place ends up being a
actually
Disney, actually pretty good, and they can do Disney also, then they can lose a client.
I think that was how you sold me on really, we have done the others, but just really not focused on it. Like I wanted to be known as a Disney agency. Like I wanted to be one of the top Disney agencies, and, you know, I wanted to get there, and I just like, I kind of had tunnel vision. But it was when you said, okay, but look, you may be losing some of these Disney clients because if they decide to go to an all-inclusive, if they decide to go on a different cruise line, if they decide to go to a different destination and your agents aren't helping them, what happens if that agency also offers Disney and then they send an email the next promotion that comes out, and then, but our agents doesn't send an email fast enough to let them know that there's a promotion? That was when I was like, I've got to, like, yes, I'm leading with my heart, but I also have to, okay, how do I make sure that the Courtneys, the ones that are quitting these other jobs, how do I make sure that they continue to sell and keep their clients and keep moving the needle and remain valuable to their clients? And
that's what had stuck with me was that if someone's making these major decisions, that this is the industry they want to be in, we have to help them be successful. So we have to provide all of the right products, you know, that they're going to need to service the clients to make sure they can take care of their families. You know, that's something that, you know, people don't know that we think about all the time, is how we have to make sure we're doing the right things and making the right decisions so people can take care of their families.
And I think, you know, it's funny because, like, I think back when we used to have conferences at Spring Mill, like the first one we had 10, the next one we had 20, then we had 50, then we had 100. And it just kept growing. Then we did a Disneyland where we had 100. You know, we just kept moving the needle. But I'm pretty sure that the other vendors were always at, like Trish was from Sandals was always there. Chris from Royal Caribbean was always there. Lou, I think, was at the first one, and then they moved, they changed BDMs, and so I'm not really sure who came after that until we moved down here. But they never gave up on us. Scott never gave up on us. And these are people, like I said, that's become friends. I mean, you know, it's like Scott Verkrumba during the 2020 pandemic. Like, we were having our conference and all of these people are at our conference at Disney. And it's just like we built this bond, and it's like, we know Scott's kids. It's like we know these people. They're our friends. And like I said, their success is our success. And so I think that part of the evolution of Magical Vacation Planner, AKA MVP, there's one MVP, and that's us. Like, no matter how many try to wordplay things, like, there's one, and that's us. And and the people that it's not a one-man band. It was a one-man band when we started, when we were doing eBay, and I was like, just kind of had like, oh, I want to sell, like, I'm already helping these people, let me do this. But the amount of people, you quitting your job to come and help us, like Michelle, having to finally go to 40 hours a week, that was crazy to say, hey, every week I'm going to pay you for 40 hours.
Which ties in the other industry that I was in. I was a corporate trainer.
Right.
I learned how to train everyone so we could bring those talents right here to MVP.
Do you remember sitting behind me and saying, teach me how you do it?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have something and I can't figure out what it is, but you're really good at it if you just let me watch you and just kind of be a fly on the wall. Mm-hmm. And I hated that.
You were so nervous.
I hated that.
You were so nervous because you thought I was critiquing.
Yeah, and I don't take criticism very well.
And I wasn't critiquing what you were doing. I was trying to understand how we can take that, package it up, and provide that and push it out to the advisors so they can be as successful as you were at that time. So that was what I was trying to pull out.
Yeah, but it made me nervous because I remember you saying one time, you're like, well, how come you made that decision? Like, and I was like, why is it wrong? And you're like, no, the company I work for literally just paid somebody $100,000 to come in for 2 weeks to finally come to the conclusion that you just literally made in 2 minutes.
Yes.
And I said, I don't know. And you said, you've got something that you've got to pay attention to your instinct.
Absolutely.
He said, because literally we just saved $100,000 because we don't have to pay somebody like that to come in to tell you what you already know.
Right.
And you gave me that confidence, like, just over the years, because confidence like that just doesn't pop out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And it's built over the years. It's built by falling, and then you build, you get back up and you dust off and you fall again, and then you get back up and then you fall again. But I was always so afraid to grow because I was afraid somebody would try to take it away from me.
Yeah. I get that. Yes.
And so we were kind of slow growing at first. And then the second we got a little bit bigger, that's what happened. Yeah. People come in and they say you're doing stuff you shouldn't be doing. And that's hard. That is a mentally hard part of the journey that helps you get to the next level.
The thing with growth is not being innovators.
No.
That's not the thing with growth. The thing with growth is finding something that you do very, very well and duplicate it.
Right.
Over and over and over again. Whatever it is that you find that works.
Right.
Make sure that is a foundational piece.
Yep.
And you hold on to that, and you make sure that is something that you do over and over and over for every guest, every client, no matter if they spend a little bit with you or a lot. Make sure the service level is always the same.
Exactly. And do you remember when Dr. Goldsby from Ball State said, can I do a case study? Mm-hmm. And I remember you and I both were like, no, why would we tell you how we do business? Like, I remember because I knew we had tapped into something that was not expected. I knew we had something good. Like, I did, but I knew that we had to be really careful with what we did with it. And so we finally let Dr. Goldsby and his students do a case study on us. And do you remember what the conclusion was? Is he said, you need more Courtneys And that's what we did. We went out and we found more Courtneys. You developed the training. You watched. I stopped selling. And that was hard for me. Even to this day, I miss the selling part of this agency. I loved the chase. I loved meeting. I mean,
You loved working with people. You loved
I
helping
do.
families and planning. Again, you've
Yeah.
already talked about how that took you to that place where you can envision yourself
It was
walking through the
therapy.
park.
Yeah, it was
Absolutely.
therapy.
Walking through the parks
Yeah.
and doing all those things with those families.
And it's ironic because, people say, oh, they're just clients. But a couple of weeks ago, one of my first clients that I had, her and her daughter came. They were from LA, and we've built a really good relationship with them. And they came out and stayed with us after the pandemic. We went out. They always meet us when we go to Disneyland. Her and her daughter just came out, came down to Walt Disney World. And then another client that she had referred to us was coming this week too. They ended up having to cancel it. But my clients become my friends. They become people that cheered for me. And that was hard. Like, how are strangers cheering me on? But yet people that I know and people that should technically be cheering me on are trying to hold me back, and I'm having to fly under the radar and dumb things down when I'm around certain people because it was that noise. Remember in one of the previous episodes, I think you said shun the noise. And I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be mentally strong. This is
Laser focus.
you have to be laser focused. You cannot let people knock you off of track. Now, I will be the first to admit that if my feelings get hurt, you can count me out for 2 days. I need to get better at that. That's something, it used to be like 2 weeks. So I am doing better. But if my feelings get hurt, or something happens, and I don't know if that's because I give this 100% of my being. If you have my cell or you have connection to me, I give you 100% of me. And I think that if someone does something or they do something or something makes me feel like I've not done a good job, or they question my integrity, or they question, I will be the first to admit I'm not a good patient for you, because that is what I am. I mean, I am a patient, and you have to get me back to reality
Those
and
things,
back on track.
yes, I get that. Those things are very hurtful.
I'm doing better.
Thankful. And at the same time, you got to remember, as you increase the amount of success that you have, there's always somebody that's going to be there to try to tear you down and try to knock you down. Right. That's not going to be in your corner. That's not going to be cheering for you. So it's just like in sports.
Right.
When you win the championship, guess what? You're a target for every single team.
Yeah.
The following season, everybody wants to knock you down.
Oh, that's true. You scored 101 points. You're really scoring that on me.
And that's something. That you have to almost embrace and almost look at it as, you know what? We need to make sure that we're on top of our game, that we're doing the things, because there's all these other, companies and all these other people that's coming for
100%.
you. Yes. And when, just like in the travel industry, when we go to these conventions and these conferences, and people know that we're diamond with Disney, we're diamond with Universal, we're diamond with ALG, we're the central partners of the year for 2023 for Royal Caribbean and all those things. There's going to be, people or companies that's gunning for you.
Right.
So that keeps us, top of our game, knowing that we have to continue to provide the right tools, the right education and everything for our advisors. And we have to be, one step, ahead of what's coming.
But I just want everybody to like me. And not everybody likes me. And that's hard. That's hard because I'm I always want what's best for everybody. And so I think that, like I said, if I give you my all, and I'm like, and if you are in, and we are communicating with each other, like I'm giving you 100%. And I know I'm better than I used to be, but I always said the mean girls in high school prepared me for the mean girls in college. And those mean girls in college prepared me for the mean basketball wives, because Lord knows
There's a bunch of them.
there's a lot of them. Then those mean basketball wives prepared me for the business, men and women. Like it was, they were equal opportunists. And then that then prepared me for like some inner, like some really inner, what's the word I'm looking for? Like just some really attacks, like some attacking my inner being, my, like who I am. And I know who I am. You know who I am. Our family knows who I am. And I remember Jada one time coming in, she's like, why do you care what this person thinks of you? Like, and I'm like, because it matters. Like, because I've given this person my all.
Just like you just said.
Yeah.
Just like you just said. If you're giving your all, it's that cheerleader in you that's coming out of you.
Yeah.
You know, that's something you're rooting for them. You want to see the best.
Right.
You know, when I see an advisor that I know can do so much more.
Yeah.
And they don't. And I know all the tools that's there, and I know how we can help them.
Right.
You know, I want to just pull them to the side and just, you know, reaffirm, hey, this is the business. Remember, you want to do this. We can help you. There's a lot of tools out there, you know, let's try this or let's try that. I want to pull them to the side and have, you know, conversations like that. But, you know, it's got to be something that's in them as well.
100%. And I think that that's what, you know, a lot of times when people get in this industry, they say, well, you know, what am I going to make? And I'm like, well, it depends on you. Like, it doesn't depend on me. We can give you the tools. We can coach you. We can teach you. We have things in place to tell you everything you need to know. But ultimately, it relies on you. Because if a client calls and it takes you a day to get back with them, it's hard. You know, you're not going to continue to get these clients. You're not going to continue to get repeat clients. You have to have a fast return. If you're not answering your calls and returning, or at least returning a text and saying, I'll call you right back, I'm on the phone. Like, we have that technology. When we started Magical Vacation Planner, I didn't even have texting. Like, I just started MVP. So when we started MVP, we did not have a lot of, like, I think I started social media probably a year into opening the travel agency.
When we started MVP, there was a little folder that you put together.
100%.
And now everything is online or digital, and, you know, lots of different tools.
Come a long way, baby.
Absolutely.
But that's the other thing, like with the evolution of and the change, if you're not willing to change and pivot, you will be left behind. But even with things like this podcast, if you're not up on what's happening, like I said, we're late on this. We should have started a podcast a long time ago, but we just have really, really, really been focused on rebounding from the pandemic. And, you know, that was a curveball. You know, I mean, we could have curled up and said, well, that was a fun ride. But instead, we doubled down and rolled up our sleeves and did training. And, you know, just we were there for our agents. And it was really a psychological, like, moment, especially for those that's been in the industry for a while that had built up their clientele. To see it all just disappear basically overnight was very traumatic. But we just, you know, those that decided to stay in the game and stay, like, are actually doing really well right now, because those that took care of their clients, that stayed up on top of things. So when I say someone's success depends on what they do. So if they put the time in during the pandemic and took care of their clients, they're keeping those clients, and they have built advocates in them. So those clients that they take care of, that they took care of during the pandemic, have told their friends, and then they've told their friends, and they've told their friends. So I think that one of the challenging things of being an entrepreneur is just really staying ahead of the game, when there's just days I would just really like to just sit back and say, you know what, I want to sleep in today, but we never do.
Well, you know, you mentioned the word challenge.
Yeah.
Challenging. And this was kind of a challenge, but I think it was a breakthrough moment for the company. You know, when it used to be just known as Disney.
Right.
Okay. Back then. And one of the challenges that we had was trying to overcome
Right.
everybody just seeing us as Disney
Right.
and nothing more.
Right.
You know, a breakthrough moment that we had was when we decided to update and change our logo.
Yeah.
Okay. And kind of rebrand, but not only rebrand, restructure the way that we did business, which I think was a breakthrough moment that helped us achieve some of these levels, you know, diamond with this company, diamond with that company back then. So we changed the logo and we changed the structure of the company where we focused on MVP parks, MVP cruising, and MVP getaways, and we have drivers in each of those business units. I think that was a breakthrough moment 100%. For the company. What's your thought on that?
I agree with that 100%. And I also, you know, I think that by diversifying like that really did set us apart. Because if you think about that old logo, the one with the wand and the stars, that was magical. It was cute. It was almost girly, like at times. Well,
it was hard to have on clothing.
It was. And it was hard to wear to a golf, like if you were golfing or, you know, it's like it just, you know. And then as MVP evolved and we started having guys that wanted to do this, like it never even dawned on me that guys would want, I mean, this was kind of a girls club at the beginning. And I believe it was Nate that stood up in our maybe 2000 conference or 2000. Yeah, I think it was the 2000. And he said, there's such a focus on women. Like, what are you doing in this company for guys like me? You know, so there was him and Scott. We, you know, like we had Ben, like we had a lot of guys, but I never really thought about it because I never really thought about being just a girls club, like because we were welcoming to everybody, like everybody was welcome, but a lot of the messages and the messaging that I had came up with up until that point was very female driven. So that was an aha moment for me. I don't know if Nate realizes that, but I mean that statement, that question that he made, it made me cringe at the time because I was like, well, what do you mean I'm not welcoming to men? Of course I'm welcoming to men. But you think about the logo, you think about all the stories I told, like you can't tell the MVP story without talking about the original agents. And they were all females. They were all women that had gone to college. They had careers and they wanted to stay or they wanted to spend more time with their kids. So you couldn't tell the MVP story without telling about these women and the women that built, you know, the early stages of this company, you know. But then we have we have Doug, now we have Mike, and we've got agents, we have staff, you know. But I think that a lot of times when people say things that puts me outside of my comfort zone or something that I might originally be like, oh my gosh, am I doing something wrong or am I not including everybody? That also helps us get better. Even though it's hard at the time to hear that, what Nate said was 100% true. We needed to rebrand. We needed to we needed to create a brand that men and women and children, and now like even MVP kids, the kids want to wear the logos. It's a logo that everybody's proud of. People's spouses are wearing them. You know, it's a brand that I'm proud to be a part of. And it's not just me and you. Our brand is our people. Our brand is our culture. Our brand is the kids, you know. And that's why I say even the MVP kids, like I want them to step up and I want them to do better, be better. If someone's getting bullied at school, you know, I've talked to some of the MVP kids. I said, if you see someone being bullied, stand up for the kids that people are making fun of. Even if it's adults, like stand up for the people that don't have a voice, because you're an MVP kid. And you have a voice and you can.
So what is it that you think that, you know, as being the founder of Magical Vacation Planner, what is it that you think that really sets Magical Vacation Planner apart from other agencies in the industry?
Well, I think there's a lot of really good companies out in the industry. Like, so I'm not saying that, oh, we're the best. We're different. We're different than a lot of them. We don't take anybody that's ever been in the industry. So I think that's one thing that's unique, because you know the story, but I'll share with our friends. I said I wanted to be one of the best Disney travel agencies, but as I sit on MTAC, which is a board that Disney has for their top advisors, that's the Earmark Travel Advisory Council is what MTAC stands for. And I remember in 2019 sitting at one of these meetings that I was incredibly, incredibly nervous to go to, because at that time we had some haters, let's just call them what they are. And they were attacking me, us, you online. And that was one of those hard moments. And I felt like everybody in the world hated us. I felt like everybody in the world thought that we were frauds, like we were liars, and we weren't nice, and we weren't trying to promote being kind, and we weren't, it's like everything that we are, I felt like everybody was trying to tear that down. And I had experienced people being mean, but never on that level. Like never have I been said, like, has it been said that we're doing something wrong with our ICs, that we're like the fair labor law is going to come after us, which we did get audited. But it ended up being a really good thing, because actually come to find out our contracts are good. The way we treat, it's like we have employees. The employees don't cross over to ICs, our ICs, our ICs. It's up to them to do whatever they like, to build their business to whatever they want. But I remember sitting in there and being someone with, like, I'm not only dyslexic, I have ADHD, which is a shocker to anybody that knows.
Not to me.
I know. I finally embraced it. It's like people used to be like, she's scatterbrained. She's this. And I am scatterbrained, because I can be sitting in a meeting and it looked like I'm bored, but somebody will say something in the meeting and my brain's like, and I'm thinking of all these things. So I was sitting in the MTAC meeting at the Contemporary. I remember this is what's wrong with my brain. I remember where I was sitting, who I was sitting next to. And I remember somebody said something and it triggered me. And I said, okay, if this company's doing X amount, and this company's doing X amount, and this company's doing X amount, and this company's doing X amount, what if I get Courtney to the point where she's doing as much as this one doing? What if I got Casey to do as much as this one? What if I get Jenny to do this? It's like, and so I start putting our agents, I get Adelaida, like if Adelaida's doing more than this one, and I start putting a name with each of these agencies. And I'm like, they don't have to worry about payroll. They don't have to worry about the fair labor law. They don't have to worry about any of this stuff. All they have to worry about is their business, driving their business. I not only, and this did not happen, but I remember sitting in that meeting and dreaming while they were probably telling us something very important that I needed to know. But I remember thinking, how cool would it be if we basically had an MTAC of our own that equated to everybody in that room? Mm. And that is something probably only 5 people know about that. Like 5 people probably know about that dream. But I remember sitting there and thinking, what I love that we have created is that Casey can build her business and she doesn't have to worry about payroll. She doesn't have to worry about marketing. Yes, she has to market herself, and yes, she has to do that, but she doesn't have to worry about all the back end office things. She doesn't have to worry about the trade law. She doesn't have to worry about like all the legal stuff. I mean, our legal department is not small. And I think that it surprises people when they find out, because they're like, oh, it's just a travel agency. What would you need to know? Trademark, copyright, infringement, and it's like fair labor law, ICs, employment laws. Like there's a lot that goes along with this.
As well as making sure that we're protecting the advisors.
100%.
That's because, you mentioned we don't have advisors that's ever been in this industry.
Right.
So
a lot of them have never had a business.
They don't know all the things that they need to be protected for.
And that's our job, is to protect them.
Absolutely.
Because if they're having to worry about somebody going after them for whatever, then they're not selling. If they're not focused on their business.
Let's just say they gave somebody a recommendation on where to go eat. Something happened. Somebody got sick. Mm-hmm. Well, they recommended that restaurant so they could be held liable.
You even take it a little bit further than this, and a kind of a similar situation happened, but we had an agent that had some clients that went on a cruise, and the client said, hey, I want to do this excursion. So
scuba diving.
Yeah. And there was a fatality. And I remember the travel agent being just completely traumatized. So it's like, so you don't really think about that. But even like that agent needed kind of counseling and coaching and hey, we need to make sure that one, did the family get back okay? The cruise line took great care of the client's family, but those things happen. Those aren't things we talk about. Those aren't things we broadcast, but we had to help that agent. And this is an agent that sells multiple trips a day. We had to help her get through this and make sure that we put people in place to make sure that one, she was mentally okay, because that's very hard. When you have clients that someone, it was a freak accident, it was just a freak accident. We've had that happen multiple times, and we're equipped. I'm not saying that we're the best in the business, but
that insurance was offered.
That was another thing. So it's like, so we put these things in place to protect our agents in the event that something does happen. There's always going to be, at the volume that we do, there's always going to be something. There's always going to be something. But we try to prevent our agents. We try to set them up for success. And if something does happen, we want to be there to help them and help guide them and coach them through when something does happen. But it's our job to set them up for success. So if they're worried about, or they're getting attacked on social media, like, we have to be there to coach them. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, we have to be there to help them. And that's what I'm proud of. Like, I'm proud of, we've taken people that have never owned a business, and to see this as, holy cow, like, this is actually a business. It's almost like a franchise. We don't call it a franchise, but that is what it is.
Yes, without the expense.
Without the expense of having a franchise.
So I get the privilege of knowing what's in your heart, what's in your mind, the vision that you have for MVP, where we're going, in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years.
Right.
Okay. But others don't get that opportunity to understand, and know what MVP and where MVP is going to go in the next couple of years. So we've gone through MVP. We've talked about awards. We've looked at a lot of things, talked about how we were established, how we grew. So in the short term, where do you see us going with MVP? What do you envision for this company?
Oh man, I want our advisors to, whatever goals they set, I want to help them get where they're wanting to go. If that's paying off credit card bills, if that's paying for houses, I want to get them going there. But I think the analogy that you said, that you don't know what you don't know. It's like when we were just a Disney focused agency, you only know, and then it's like, okay, here I've conquered this. I've gotten to the level that I want. And you don't really know all of the other brands that are out there. One of the things that I noticed, that when we go to inaugurals, or we go and we're around other companies, other larger, like far larger companies than we are, one, it gives me that drive to know that, one, it's possible, that there's more out there, that there's more. Don't just get content being the top at your category. Like, there's more out there. And I think what I said
for a second. Yeah. I used to tell Dwayne, when he was younger, don't just try to be the best in your community. Because to get a scholarship, you have to be the best in the country. You have to be better than people in New York.
Right.
You have to be better than the players in Chicago.
Right.
You have to be better than the players in LA.
Right.
Not just being the best player locally.
Right.
So
going on the inaugural cruise, we just got off of the Royal Caribbean Icon of the Seas. Phenomenal ship. I love it. I love the Wizard of Oz that's on that ship. The play or the show, whatever it's called, hands down one of the best shows I've ever seen.
They will win an award for that show.
Oh, 100%. But one thing, when I go to events like this that is outside of the Disney community, it shows me how much more growth, or how much more how many more opportunities there are. And I think I shared with you that my observation on going on the Icon of the Seas was, it's pretty much dominated by men. It's pretty much, it's a very male dominated. In the Disney travel agency world, it's predominantly, it used to be predominantly women, but now there's a lot, there's a handful of guys that's really come and, brought some competition to the game. But when I go and we're around other, much larger agencies, what I saw was there's not a lot of women. And so I want to change that. There is one lady that, she's done phenomenal, built a phenomenal company. And we've met her at a couple of events, and she seems like a very nice lady. And I don't even know her, but I'm just like, I just want to be like, yeah, you go, girl. Because I can't imagine what it was like for her to get where she was in this male-dominated industry. But I feel like a lot of times women hold other women back, like other owners. And so I feel like I've wasted a lot of time being held back or by being sidetracked or letting my feelings get hurt when you've said it before, like you went on a travel leaders golf trip that was at Pebble Beach.
Yes.
And you said, like, most of these companies are ran by men. And I'm like, it's because all of us women are over here in this little area, this little central focalized area, and everybody's holding everybody back. Like, it's like you do something, you move 2 steps forward and they turn you into Disney. They turn you into this vendor. They turn you into the Fair Labor Law. You get moles that come in and work for your company and then say you're doing this, or they take your business model and then they build another one. Or, it's like there's all of this nonsense when, a competitor, he had I can't remember the name of his company, but he was on MTAC with me 10 years ago. And I remember thinking he's different because he wasn't holding people back. And I have a really good core group of women owners in the Disney travel agency world that are good friends, that are good confidants, and they're just good people. But I just see this cattiness of high school, college, basketball wives. And I'm just like, why do women do that? So if you ask me where I want to go, I want to be a contender with these men in this male-dominated industry. Whereas when I used to think that it was a female-dominated industry.
That's really interesting, because the way what I hear you saying is you want to expand the opportunity for women just the same way that we're expanding the opportunity for travel.
Right.
And so we take anybody that's ever been in the travel industry to expand and advance the travel industry. And you're doing the same thing with the overall business. And that's pretty cool.
I think that when we had dinner with Galen from Royal Caribbean, and she didn't realize she was on our highlight reel from our 2020 conference that is like my all-time favorite video ever. When she didn't know that she was on our what I call the highlight reel. I think that's basketball terms because you always had a highlight reel. So every season, but sizzle reel. Yeah. So I said, did you know that? Like when you were on stage and you had that sequin Royal Caribbean dress on, and she said, do you know how powerful it is to be an MVP, to be a magical vacation? Do you know how powerful that is in this industry? And I think a lot of times our agents don't realize what that means. There's nothing to me that like better than any paycheck, any money could ever buy when I meet somebody that says, I work in the call center and I talked to you 10 years ago and you made me feel good, or I talked to one of your agents, or how come every time I talk to one of your agents, I have never talked to an agent from MVP that has been mean, nasty, or unkind. We literally have some of the kindest people. It's not like, hey, I'm calling, I need to get this trip. It's, hey, how are you? I remember Maxine that works in our office now. She used to work for Disney. Now she works for us. I remember her saying that. She said, when there was a hurricane down here, you send out a letter. And I was like, yeah, like to me, that's just standard. That one, we take care of our agents that are down here, make sure they're okay. But we also get a list of their clients to make sure that somebody that lives in Indiana or Kentucky or Maryland or somewhere can help them in case they lose power, and they can, their clients that are down here have access to somebody. What's the protocols if there's a hurricane? What do the clients do? And she said, one thing that struck me about your email that you sent to your agents is you suggest, or you advise the agents to say to the people on the call center, who is answering the calls, hey, are you in the line of this hurricane? How are you? This must be like you're having to work. Like, do you have your water? Do you have Is everybody in your family, how are you? How are you? That just seemed like a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't we say, how are you? Are you doing okay? Are you, like, how are you? And she said, that's not common. And I thought, how is it not common? Like, that's just
Caring.
That's just common. Like, that's just caring.
Yeah, it's being kind and it's caring.
So for me, when I hear that our agents represent our brand, we had a nephew. I'm not going to name a name, but he got in trouble, and they asked for you and I to talk, and he loved wearing his MVP shirts, and I said, I'm going to tell you that for 1 month you can't wear an MVP shirt, and he was like, well, why? I said, because when you wear that MVP shirt, if you're not out there being kind and being nice and being a good MVP kid, you don't deserve to get to wear that shirt. And I think that his parents were shocked. I think that you were probably taken aback. And I think he was just confused. And I'm like, it means something to wear the MVP brand. And if you're going to wear it, you better wear it and walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yeah, because he doesn't realize how many people know who he is.
Yeah.
Because he's
and what he did wasn't even really that bad.
I know that.
But his mom and dad wanted to make a point, and I said, I've got, like, he cannot wear the MVP brand for 1 month.
Yes. So what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs that's looking to enter into the travel industry or join Magical Vacation Planner?
Well, the sky's the limit, but it's not going to happen overnight. If you do not take care of your clients, the ones that you have, you will not build your business fast. But if you do good and you're a good advocate for your clients, the sky's the limit in this industry. I mean, if you'd have told me that we had the possibility of agents making six figures, not just low six figures, but good six figures. If you'd have told me that 15 years ago, I'd have thought you was crazy, because that was when I wasn't even making $200 a week, because I didn't know what I didn't know.
I told you 5 figures back then.
You did. And we thought, whoa, like, I mean, I remember the first time we talked to some of the agents, we're like, if you do this right, like, you can make $50,000. And
some of them was like, we were skeptical.
Yeah, they were skeptical. I was skeptical. I mean, it's like,
I can understand why they were skeptical, because this was something new.
Right. None of us knew.
Watching this,
right. I always joke and I say, I'm the type that will jump out of an airplane and build my parachute while going down. Like I've got crunch time. I work my best in crunch time. Like, you've got X amount of seconds to build this parachute or you're going to go splat. I think that's the other thing too. I think so many times when something goes wrong,
people give up.
And my mom used to always say to me, everything you two touch turns to gold. And I said, Mom, it doesn't. It's like everything we touch, we figure it out. If we go left and that's the wrong answer, we figure out how to make left work. How do you make left work? How do you make the wrong decision be a right decision?
Exactly.
And I think that that's what you and I are good at, because once again, people didn't have high expectations for us. Like, we were not, like, when both of you you and I both came out of high school, nobody expected us to do anything. So we didn't have the pressures, I mean, I didn't have my parents saying, if you don't make the honor roll, I mean, my parents were like, if you don't make an F, like, how many times do you have to fail freshman English, Jamie? And I was like, well, it's been 2 so far. So, but like, I didn't have that pressure of, I had to make the honor roll. Like, I made the honor roll once, and that was my senior year. And it was like probably 1A and the rest Bs. But I just remember thinking, holy cow, like, I did it. Yeah. And then I went to college, and someone taught me,
only one line from being an A.
Right. But someone in college, because Sullivan isn't Indiana University and Sullivan isn't Duke or, University of Kentucky or an Ivy League school. Like, where all my friends were going to these big schools. It's like Sullivan catered to students like me.
Absolutely. Free day Friday.
Right. I went in and
see your instructors.
It was an optional day.
One. Optional.
Yeah.
One.
It was an optional day. You know what? I went every Friday.
Absolutely.
I went every Friday. And I talked to every instructor and I said, what can I do? How can you help me? Because I didn't read good.
Extra credit.
Right. Extra credit. Like, I really want to learn. And they knew that I was different. They knew I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm not going to be something that you have to take tests. I was an out of the box thinker, and they embraced that. And that was the first time that in a school environment that being what was dubbed as dumb for 13 years was finally like, it's okay that you don't read really well. Here you go. Like, so we bought the books in college. Like, you bought your books that you studied from. That meant you could write in them. That meant you could take a highlighter to them. So one of the first class I took, they taught me how to highlight what was important, because like my brain, it works in bold or it works in highlights. So I could memorize things. My retention level was so small, but my street smart, I guess you would say, my instinct was above anybody.
Absolutely, yes.
That, so it's like, and here's the other thing. I didn't care if people called me stupid. Like, that does not bother me. I'd be like, yep, you're right. You're probably definitely way smarter than me. But you know what? I can make any situation, like I can take lemons and make lemonade.
And that's what they understood. They understood that people think differently. They learn differently.
Right.
So I didn't do well in a big class setting.
Right.
So that's why I chose Sullivan.
Right.
Smaller class sizes, you got one-on-one attention. Mm-hmm. And if you needed extra attention, you got that attention on Friday.
Right.
If you chose to participate.
And the smart kids, like one of my friends in college, she ended up being a lawyer. Her dad was a lawyer at the school. And so she didn't have to go to, like, she was super smart though. I mean, she was super smart. She ended up being a lawyer. Now I think she teaches at University of Louisville, but
so learning all these things. So what I would say, the advice I would give to a aspiring entrepreneurs is never give up.
Right.
First of all, never stop dreaming.
Yeah.
You can make a difference. You if you set your mind to it and you want to work and put action into a plan.
Yeah.
Notice I said action.
Yeah.
It's the verb.
Because you can dream all you want.
You can dream.
Yeah.
But you got to have a plan also.
Right. And you got to put in the time.
And exactly. And then what you said a few seconds ago is, if you go down that road, you take this course and it doesn't work out,
pivot.
Make it work out.
Right.
Or pivot.
Right.
Make a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when we moved down to Florida and we moved where there were a lot of entrepreneurs, like big name entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And I remember we had some haters. It was during that time we were kind of getting attacked online, and they were writing our country clubs and they were writing our neighbors and telling them, oh, blah, 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 like they've got this travel agency and, all of this nonsense.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to the neighbor because I can't remember if he had received something, like he had received, because like people knew what our address was. So it's like they just did one before and one after and one across. Like, so, I mean, They were hitting us in our neighborhood. They were hitting us in our country clubs. Like they were really, and I remember he laughed, and
I remember what he said.
He said,
"Congratulations,
welcome to the club. You've made it." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." He said, "Ask any of us." He said, "Ask anybody on this street. Ask anybody that has a successful company."
That's the thing about it. If you
expect the haters,
look at any successful company out there,
but that was hard.
There's not 100% perfect anything.
Right.
Everybody has haters.
Yeah, but that just made no sense to me. Like, it just made no sense that somebody would go to those efforts to do those things, to try to discredit who we are. And he said, you can't lie about who you are. He's like, I've known you for X amount of years. He's like, y'all are good people. He said, I watch you when you don't know that I'm watching. People watch you. People know. He said, people know. The people in this neighborhood know. And I remember, I just thought, when he said, welcome to the club, I was like, well, this isn't a very fun club to be in if you got haters. Like, and he's like, well, you're not going to make it this far without haters. So I would say, never give up. Accept, I guess you don't have to accept the haters, but it's a sign that you're doing okay. Yeah. Not everybody's going to love you. It's okay that everybody doesn't love you, but never give up. Don't chase the money.
Yeah.
Do the right thing. put the things, surround yourself with the right people. Their success is your success. If they're not successful, you're not successful. And I think put your people first. And I think that that's what, when I go to these
Believe in
meetings,
what you're doing.
yeah, try to make an impact. How can you make the world a better place? Like, that sounds very pageantry of me, but I really do. When we've left this earth, I want people to say, you know what? They made a difference. They made the world a better place.
And I know this is a digital world right now, but I think one thing that will never change is always remember that even though it's a digital world, it's always a relationship business.
100%. It's all about relationships. If you can't work with people you don't like, you might as well not work. So with that, we wish you the best in whatever endeavor it is that you are choosing. And we hope that we have inspired you to take it to that next level.
Take a chance.